The Dragon Emperor sat on his throne, a giant figure of scales that shimmered like molten gold in the light of his palace. His eyes glowed like twin suns, bright and sharp, as he stared down at the gifts brought from across the galaxy. There were treasures of every kind, crystals that sang when touched, rare metals heavier than mountains, and jewels that sparkled with colors no human could name. Yet, with each gift, the Emperor shook his massive head and let out a growl that made the floor tremble. "Pathetic," he said, his voice echoing through the immense hall. "Do they think their little trinkets can impress me? Do they not know who I am?" Around him, envoys from countless worlds bowed and trembled, trying to hide their fear. No one dared speak. Entire fleets had traveled light years to reach this moment, carrying the most precious treasures their planets could offer. They had hoped to earn the favor of the Dragon Emperor, to gain his protection, or perhaps to avoid his wrath. But nothing worked. Every gift was rejected, every offering dismissed. Some envoys begged, some pleaded, but the Emperor's cold eyes never softened. Even the grandest of gifts, ships made of crystal, living forests and floating spheres, animals from planets no human had ever seen, were sent away with a flick of his claw. "No," he said simply. "Useless." Stories of the Dragon Emperor's cruelty were whispered across the stars. Entire planets had fallen to his rage simply because they misunderstood his will. Yet he was not cruel for the sake of cruelty. He valued only what he considered worthy: strength, wisdom, and honesty. Anything else, no matter how beautiful or valuable, was meaningless to him. Far away on a small mining colony, a boy named Leo listened to these stories. He was an orphan, living alone in a metal shack at the edge of the settlement. The adults often said humans were weak, small, and fragile, unable to compete with alien races. But Leo did not care. He loved hearing stories of the Dragon Emperor, even if they made him shiver. He wondered if anyone could ever reach the heart of such a mighty being. Leo spent his days exploring the rocky canyons near his home, drawing pictures on scraps of paper. He drew stars, spaceships, dragons, and strange planets. Sometimes he imagined what it would be like to meet the Dragon Emperor, not with gifts or gold but with something from his heart. "Maybe," he whispered to himself, "if I try he might see me differently." Meanwhile, the Emperor's throne room remained a place of fear and awe. Envoys whispered about the child who had drawn the galaxy on a scrap of paper, laughed at the idea that a human could ever matter to the Emperor. "Foolish," they said. "No human has ever made him smile." But the Emperor noticed everything. He had lived for centuries, watched empires rise and fall, and seen countless attempts to earn his favor. None had succeeded, and yet he remained alone, untouched by any gesture of goodwill. There was a hollow space inside him, a loneliness that no treasure could fill. He had grown used to it, thinking it was the way of the galaxy. Power was all that mattered, and strength was the only language worth listening to. Yet even as he rejected the latest envoy's gift, a cage of singing stars, he felt a faint stir of curiosity. "Why do they all try so hard?" he murmured. "Do they not see it is useless?" The envoy, trembling and stammering, could only bow and wait for the Emperor's judgment. But the Emperor's eyes lingered on the cage longer than usual. He was thinking not of treasure but of the effort, the hope, the courage it took for someone to bring him something, believing it would matter. Across the galaxy, Leo's small hands gripped a crayon. He had no crystal, no jewels, no riches to offer. But he had a drawing, simple and imperfect, made with care. A tiny dragon curled around a smiling child, surrounded by stars. It was nothing compared to the treasures of empires, but it was his gift, and it came from the heart. For the first time in centuries, the Dragon Emperor felt a strange feeling he did not understand. It was not fear, nor anger, nor pride. It was curiosity, and perhaps, in the faintest whisper of his mind, hope. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the balance of power, the stories of fear and awe, were about to change. Somewhere, a small human was preparing to do what no treasure or tribute ever had: touch the heart of the Dragon Emperor. Leo could not stop thinking about the Dragon Emperor. Every night, he lay on the metal floor of his small shack and imagined the enormous throne room, the golden scales, and the glowing eyes that had terrified entire fleets. He knew he was small, weak, and alone. But he also knew that he had something no one else could offer: honesty and courage. He sat at a worn wooden table, holding a piece of scrap paper and a crayon. His hand shook as he drew a dragon curled around a small human child. The dragon's eyes sparkled like stars, and the child's face wore a gentle smile. Around them, Leo scribbled tiny planets and little stars, filling the empty space with hope. It was far from perfect. The lines were crooked, the colors outside the shapes, but it was his gift. and he poured his heart into it, hoping it might reach the Dragon Emperor in some small way. "I hope you see me," Leo whispered, his voice barely audible. "Even if it's just a little." The boy knew the journey ahead would not be easy. The Emperor's palace floated in the center of a dangerous star system, surrounded by asteroid fields, energy barriers, and automated defenses. Many who had tried to approach it had vanished or returned empty-handed. But Leo was not afraid of treasure or power. He was not carrying crystals or jewels. He carried only a simple card, made with care and love. And in that, he believed, lay his strength. He packed a small bag, a few scraps of paper, his crayons, some food, and a water container. He left the dusty colony behind, walking toward the starport. People watched him leave, shaking their heads. "Foolish human," they whispered. "He'll never survive. The Emperor doesn't care for children or anyone." Leo ignored them. He did not travel for fame or reward. He traveled because he wanted to try, and because sometimes trying was the only thing that mattered. The journey through space was long and dangerous. Small meteor showers raked his tiny ship, sending it spinning. He dodged asteroid belts that would have destroyed larger, more powerful vessels. His ship was fragile, but Leo was clever. He steered with precision, using instinct and courage more than technology. Every challenge he faced made him more determined. Every danger reminded him that he had to reach the Emperor no matter what. Finally, after what felt like endless hours, he arrived at the palace. It floated like a golden fortress, shining brilliantly against the black void of space. Massive spires of crystal and metal reached out in all directions, spinning slowly as if alive. The energy barriers shimmered around it, humming with power. Leo's heart raced. The Dragon Emperor was near, and his card waited to be given. Inside the palace, the hallways were enormous, echoing with the faint rumble of the Emperor's presence. Guards and drones moved silently, scanning every corner. Leo slipped past them, small and quiet like a shadow. His heart pounded with fear but also excitement. He had never been this close to something so powerful, so ancient. And yet he did not feel small. He felt determined. At last he reached the throne room. The doors opened slowly, revealing the Dragon Emperor sitting on his enormous throne. His golden scales reflected the light of the room, and his eyes glowed like twin suns, piercing through the darkness. Leo's hands shook as he held out the card. He stepped forward, keeping his voice steady. I don't have gold or jewels or anything else," Leo said softly. "But I wanted to say thank you." He placed the card on the polished floor and bowed. "Thank you for keeping the galaxy safe even when no one sees it." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, his massive head tilting to study the small human before him. The boy was tiny, fragile, and alone. What could such a small creature offer? Leo's words echoed through the throne room, quiet but firm. The card, with its crooked lines and colorful stars, lay on the floor like a small, fragile promise. The Emperor leaned forward, claws hovering above the paper. He sniffed the air, sensing something different. No gift, no plea, no treasure had ever brought such a pause. The boy was not afraid in the usual way. He did not beg or offer power. He simply showed honesty, courage, and gratitude. Minutes passed. The throne room was silent except for the faint hum of the palace. Leo stood perfectly still, waiting. The Emperor studied the card again, moving his eyes over the small dragon and child, the stars and planets drawn with love. Something inside him stirred, a feeling he had not felt in centuries. It was not fear, nor anger, nor desire. It was curiosity. And beneath that, perhaps, hope. Leo did not know it, but he had already done something no treasure could do. He had made the Dragon Emperor stop, think, and feel. The card was more than paper and crayon. It was a bridge between two very different beings, a human child and a mighty dragon who ruled the stars. And in that moment, the galaxy waited, holding its breath. Something was about to change. Something that not even the Emperor had expected. The Dragon Emperor's massive head lowered closer to the floor, his glowing eyes fixed on the tiny card. The boy, Leo, stood trembling but firm, his hands clenched at his sides. Every muscle in the Emperor's body was tense, his scales gleaming in the light of the throne room. The air felt heavy as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. "You dare approach me," the Emperor rumbled, his voice deep and rolling, "without treasure, without tribute, without even a single promise of power?" His claws hovered over the card, each as long and sharp as a spaceship's mast. "You are nothing. Why should I even notice you?" Leo swallowed hard. His legs shook but his voice was steady. "I'm nothing, sir. I know that. But I wanted to say, thank you." He took a small step forward. You've kept the galaxy safe for centuries. You've fought battles no one even remembers. I just wanted you to know someone noticed. That someone cares. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. He had heard countless words in his long life, pleas, threats, promises and lies, but none had sounded like this. None had dared to come without fear or expectation, without greed or trickery. This tiny human spoke with honesty, with nothing to hide. It was strange. It was dangerous. And it was intriguing. Courage is meaningless if it is foolish, the Emperor said, his voice calm but heavy. Do you truly believe your words matter to me, human child? Leo nodded, his small chest rising and falling quickly. I don't know if they matter. I just know that I had to try. I wanted to show you that someone cares. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The Emperor's eyes never left the card, and the boy barely breathed. The glow of the Emperor's scales seemed to dim slightly, as if the light itself was watching and waiting. Then slowly the Emperor lowered one massive claw, careful not to crush the fragile paper. He lifted it slightly, examining the card more closely. The drawing was simple, a dragon curled protectively around a child, surrounded by planets and stars. The lines were crooked, the colors spilled outside their boundaries, but there was a sense of life in the picture. A spark of something pure. The Emperor tilted his head, studying the small details, the tiny smiling face, the little dragon's gentle eyes. No gold, no crystal, no jewel had ever carried this kind of meaning. This was not a gift to impress or intimidate. This was a gift from the heart. Why would you, a human, risk so much for something so small? The Emperor asked, his voice quieter now. The thunder of his earlier roar seemed to fade into the background. What makes you different from all the others who have come before you? Leo hesitated for a moment, then spoke simply. Because I don't have anything else to give. I can't fight. I can't bring gold. But I can try to show respect. I can try to show kindness. That's all I have, sir. The Emperor leaned back slightly, his enormous body settling onto the throne. He considered the boy carefully. His mind, so used to strategy and battle, tried to calculate the risk. A human this small could not possibly affect him. And yet, his chest felt different. It was as if something had shifted inside, a crack in the wall of ice he had built around himself over centuries. For a moment, he remembered the battles, the victories, and the endless solitude. He remembered the countless treasures and gifts that had failed to move him. And now, here was this tiny human, trembling but unwavering, offering nothing but honesty. Nothing but a simple thank you. The Emperor's eyes softened, not fully but enough for Leo to notice. It was a small change, barely visible yet monumental. You are bold, the Emperor admitted, his voice carrying a weight that made the hall vibrate. No one has ever dared approach me like this. Leo swallowed, hoping he had not made a mistake. I just wanted you to know someone cares, he repeated softly. Even if it's only me. The Emperor looked down at the card again, tracing the lines with the tip of his claw. He could feel the boy's heartbeat, small and steady, echoing like a drum in the silent hall. For centuries he had rejected every gift, dismissed every gesture, and turned away countless worlds. But something about this card, this human, was different. The silence stretched on. Then the Emperor, slowly and deliberately, lowered the card to the floor and stepped back. He did not speak, but the tilt of his massive head and the faint flicker of his glowing eyes spoke volumes. For the first time in countless years he was not angry. He was curious. Leo's heart pounded. He did not know what would happen next, but he felt a small spark of hope. The Emperor had not rejected him. He had not roared, crushed, or cast him aside. The first barrier had been broken, and the boy could feel that something extraordinary was beginning. Somewhere deep inside, the Dragon Emperor realized that he had been waiting for something he never knew he wanted. Something simple. Something honest. Something like this small human who dared to care when no one else did. And in that quiet, golden throne room, the first seed of change was planted. One that would ripple across the galaxy in ways neither human nor dragon could yet imagine. The Dragon Emperor leaned back on his throne, the card still resting on the polished floor. His eyes, usually sharp and burning like molten suns, softened slightly. For centuries he had ruled the galaxy with fear and power. Worlds had bent before him. Empires had trembled at his claws. Yet here, in his throne room, a tiny human had stopped him from acting, had made him pause in a way that no treasure or tribute ever could. Leo stood quietly, hands clasped behind his back, his small chest rising and falling with nervous breaths. He did not dare speak, fearing any sound might shatter this strange, delicate moment. The Emperor's presence was overwhelming, and yet, somehow, it no longer seemed terrifying. There was a new weight to the silence, a weight of possibility, of change. Finally, the Emperor's deep voice rumbled through the hall, slower and calmer than before. I have seen countless gifts, jewels that outshine stars, ships that could carry 1,000,000 soldiers, worlds offered as tribute, and I have rejected them all. His eyes flicked toward Leo. None moved me. None made me pause. None made me think. Leo's small fingers twitched. He could not help but glance at the card on the floor. I don't have gold, he said softly. I don't have a ship. I can't give you treasure. I just wanted to say thank you. The Emperor's massive claws hovered above the card again, then stopped. For the first time he did not bring them down to crush or dismiss. He merely looked, examining the tiny drawing with care. He noticed the crooked lines, the uneven colors, the small imperfections. And yet, in all those tiny flaws there was honesty. There was life. Why do you think your small words and crude drawings could matter to me? The Emperor asked, not in anger but in curiosity. Because, Leo said, voice shaking slightly, sometimes it is the little things that mean the most. Not jewels, not power, not fear, just someone noticing, someone caring. I wanted you to know you're not alone. The Emperor paused. He had not thought of himself as lonely in centuries, yet a small echo stirred deep inside him. Memories he had long buried began to surface. Battles fought alone, victories without friends to celebrate, moments of awe and beauty witnessed alone. He had known power, yes, but not connection. He had commanded respect, yes, but not love. He lowered his head closer to Leo, studying him. The boy's courage was remarkable. He was tiny, fragile, and alone, yet he had faced the Emperor without fear or flattery. Leo had not begged. He had not offered power. He had offered only honesty, kindness, and gratitude. And it had reached the Emperor in a way nothing else ever had. You are brave, the Emperor said, his voice carrying a weight that made the hall tremble. No human, no alien, no king or queen has ever dared approach me like this. You do not seek to manipulate, you do not seek reward. You offer only truth. Leo swallowed hard. I only wanted to show you that someone cares, he said simply. Even a small human like me. The Emperor's claws brushed the edge of the card, careful not to crush it. He could feel the boy's heartbeat faintly, a rhythm so tiny it should have been insignificant. But it was not. It was strong in its honesty, in its persistence. For centuries the Emperor had judged the galaxy by strength and wealth. And yet here something new revealed itself. Perhaps courage and honesty were stronger than gold, more powerful than fear. He studied the card again, seeing the small dragon curled around the child, the stars scattered unevenly around them. It was imperfect. It was simple. But it was alive. And it was real. Perhaps, the Emperor said slowly, his voice softer than it had been in centuries, I have been blind. I have looked for power, for beauty, for grandeur. And yet, I never looked for honesty. I never looked for sincerity. I have rejected countless gifts, and yet this small, fragile gesture. He glanced at Leo, eyes glimmering like molten gold. Moves me. Leo felt a spark of hope. The Emperor was not angry. He was not cruel. He was thinking, feeling. Something that humans had called emotion. Something he had not shown in centuries. The Emperor leaned back on his throne, claws resting on the armrests, his massive tail curling around the floor. Tell me, human child, he said, his voice now calm and curious, how is it that someone so small, so weak, can carry such strength in their heart? Leo looked up at the towering figure, a small smile appearing on his face. Strength isn't always about size, he said softly. Sometimes it's about courage. Sometimes it's about caring when no one else does. The Emperor considered this. He had ruled the stars with fear and power. He had rejected everything that could have moved him. And yet, here before him, was a tiny human who had done what no one else could. He had reached him, touched him, awakened something long buried. The golden scales of the Emperor shimmered faintly as he sat in silence. For the first time in centuries he felt something gentle, something unfamiliar. Hope, gratitude, perhaps even trust. Leo stood quietly, knowing that the moment was fragile. He had crossed a boundary no human had ever crossed. And the Dragon Emperor, mighty and ancient, was beginning to change. And somewhere deep in the Emperor's heart, a seed had been planted. A seed that could grow into something extraordinary, something the galaxy had never seen before. The Dragon Emperor slowly lowered himself fully onto his throne, his massive claws resting on the armrests. The card, lying on the polished floor, seemed to glow under the golden light of the hall. Leo's small hands were still clasped behind his back, and his chest rose and fell quickly. He had done everything he could and now he waited, unsure what would come next. For centuries the Emperor had ruled the galaxy with strength, fear and judgment. He had dismissed worlds, armies and gifts without a second thought. But now, faced with a simple human child and a tiny hand-drawn card, he felt something stir deep within him. A warmth he had never known. A feeling that no jewel, no tribute, no power could ever give. "You have done what none have done," the Emperor said, his voice low but firm, resonating across the throne room. "You have made me pause. You have made me consider something beyond power and wealth. You have shown me honesty and courage that I cannot ignore." Leo blinked, unable to believe the words he was hearing. The Dragon Emperor, the same being who had terrified entire galaxies, was speaking to him directly, and with respect. He could not stop the small smile that spread across his face. "You see, human," the Emperor continued, his eyes fixed on the boy, "I have been alone for centuries. I have seen power and beauty in all its forms, yet none of it touched me. I have rejected everything and in doing so I built walls around my heart. I thought nothing could ever reach me." He paused, letting the words sink into the vast silence of the hall. "Until now." Leo stepped forward cautiously, still holding nothing but his courage. I only wanted to say thank you," he said softly, "for keeping the galaxy safe. For all the battles you've fought, the worlds you've protected. I just wanted you to know someone noticed." The Emperor leaned closer to the boy, his golden eyes narrowing not with anger but with curiosity and a hint of wonder. He reached down with one enormous claw, carefully lifting the card into the light. The small dragon curled around the child, the stars scattered around them, the uneven lines and bright colors. It was simple, fragile, and yet powerful in its honesty. "Small," the Emperor murmured. "Fragile. Yet stronger than anything I have seen in centuries." His voice softened even more. "You have shown me something I thought I could never feel again. Gratitude, hope, connection. Perhaps even trust." Leo's heart raced. Could it really be happening? Could this fearsome creature, feared across countless worlds, actually care? The Emperor set the card down gently on a pedestal, as if it were a treasure more precious than all the jewels in the galaxy. "You, human child, have given me a gift that no gold, no crystal, no fleet could ever give. You have reminded me that strength is not only in power or fear. Strength can be in the heart." For the first time the Emperor leaned back completely, allowing himself to breathe. The throne room, usually a place of intimidation and awe, seemed quieter, warmer, almost alive. Leo felt a strange sense of calm, a feeling that he had never known. He had not only reached the Emperor, he had touched him. "You will not leave here empty-handed," the Emperor said after a long pause. "Not because of treasure, not because of fear, but because of your courage. You will stay as my guest, a human ambassador. A reminder to me and perhaps to others, that even the smallest heart can change the course of the galaxy." Leo's eyes widened. I can?" he asked softly. "Yes," the Emperor said, his voice gentle but firm. "You have done what no one else could. You have reached me, touched me, and reminded me that even a dragon emperor needs to see kindness and honesty in the world. From now on your place is here. You will help me remember what it means to care, to protect, and to trust." The boy felt tears sting his eyes. He had never imagined such a thing could happen. A simple card, drawn with crayons, had changed the heart of the most feared being in the galaxy. And in doing so, it had shown the Emperor, and perhaps all the worlds he ruled, that courage, honesty, and love were more powerful than fear, more precious than treasure and stronger than armies. The Dragon Emperor extended a claw toward Leo. The gesture was careful, deliberate, almost tender. "Come forward," he said. "You have earned your place by your heart, not by what you can give me. Let this be the beginning of something new, for you and perhaps for the galaxy." Leo stepped forward, small but proud. The Emperor's massive hand hovered over him for a moment, then rested gently on his shoulder. A warmth spread from the touch, a silent promise that things could be different. For centuries the Emperor had been alone. But now, thanks to one small human, he felt the first spark of change. In that golden hall, under the light of the stars and the shimmer of scales, the galaxy seemed different. It was no longer just a place of fear, power, and conquest. It was a place where even a small human, an orphan, could change the heart of a dragon. And as Leo looked up at the mighty Emperor, he realized that sometimes, it was the simplest things, honesty, courage, and a hand-drawn thank you card, that could make the biggest difference in the universe. The Dragon Emperor smiled, a quiet, gentle curl of his lips, the first in centuries. And somewhere across the galaxy hope had found a new voice.